grew up in a Christian home, but it was very dysfunctional, unfortunately. And my father had anger issues. And so I got to the place where I really hated my father. I did love my mother, but I hated my father. And that really kept me from coming to faith in a big way, because I thought it might bring joy to his life if I came to faith. And I was so filled with anger because he used to beat us. Not sexual abuse, but physical abuse. And so I was a very angry young person, and I acted out and got in all kinds of trouble and drifted away and got in with the wrong crowd and got in trouble with the law. And I was really headed for, some very dark places.
So your rejection, though, of the Christian faith then was because your dad claimed to be a Christian. He went to church, but he wasn't living it out.
Yeah, I believe he was a Christian. I just think he had serious anger issues that he needed help with that he never got help with. But somebody invited me to church, and I agreed to go, even though I had no interest whatsoever. I kind of did it under pressure and as a favor, and God got a hold of my life. I'm so glad somebody invited me to church. But God got a hold of my life and transformed my life and did something in my heart that I wasn't looking for or even desiring or wanting. But it was a wonderful, beautiful thing where I discovered that God pursued me, and God did a miracle in my life and just changed me.
So what was in that meeting, John, that you heard that the switch kind of went on for you? Because up until that point, like, hey, I don't want nothing to do with this Jesus stuff, this church stuff. So what was it that got your attention?
Well, I'm not sure that I could say I heard anything that was said. What I can tell you is that there were a pile of people praying. It was a small church, and my mother, I passed her bedroom every day, and she was on her knees praying, and I know that she was praying for me. And she had the church praying for me. And I would say that, boy, prayer matters. Prayer makes a difference. So somehow I arrived in this place where God did something in my heart, and I opened my heart to him, and he did a transformational work.
There's a good reminder: never give up, never stop praying for those people that you love and care about. And John's story, is a good example of that. So you head off to Bible school. Now you're all in. You went from being all out to all in. You want to serve God. But along the way, John, you had some health challenges. You struggled with cancer. And 20 years ago, you almost died.
Yeah, I had a very scary experience that where I was, my face was way, way swelled out. And the doctor had told me, he said, John, we're losing the battle. I did not want to take chemotherapy, but he pleaded with me. My wife pleaded with me. I consented, went through 6 months of therapy. Matter of fact, the darkest moment of my life was after my first treatment of chemotherapy. I felt like if you could be this sick, if you could allow me to be this sick, you can't exist. And for the only moment in my memory, I kind of questioned whether God was really there. I was so sick. And I remember I had a dramatic experience, even through the chemotherapy, that night of my darkest moment, I stepped out into the night and I saw the amazing creation of God, the stars and the moon. And it was like the only time in my life as well, but I felt like God's voice was in what I saw. And I felt like he said, this didn't get here on its own. I am here, I am present. And it was hard, and it was a dark time. After my 6 months of chemotherapy, I was told, I said, what's the prognosis now? And they said, well, we knew that this chemo couldn't cure your cancer. It's not curable, but it would buy you a little bit of time. We think 6 months, or 3 months, 6 months, and if you're really lucky, 9 months, this will all be back. So I was desperate to live. And I remember wanting to fight for life. And at 3 o'clock in the morning one morning, I was not sleeping. I was wrestling. I had 3 dependent teenage kids. And I wanted to be there for them and my wife. And so I went downstairs, sat in a chair, and I had a conversation. Called to prayer. I had a conversation with God. And I said, God, Jesus, I know you're present. I can't see you. But I know also that if you would, and you walked over here, and If you wanted to, if you put your hand on me and spoke healing into my body and healing from my head to my foot, I would be healed. And I said, I would like to ask you to do that. Then I had this sensation from my head to my feet. And I don't know if it was 5 seconds or 30 seconds. But after that, I just continued my conversation. I said, Jesus, I don't know what just happened. Either I psyched myself up for, because I'm just so desperate to live for this experience, or there's a possibility you just did what you did. That was over 20 years ago. For 20 years, I never had a sign. All my lymph nodes went down and went away. And I experienced what I believe is a miracle of healing for 20 years of incredible health.
What did the doctors say to you at that point when you went back? Because they're expecting you to be near death's door, and yet something has happened.
Well, I think they were very pleased that I was doing well.
Yeah, and I think sometimes doctors go, "Hey, there's medical science involved here. I don't know what happened, but hey, we're glad for you." So you have this, this healing, you believe. You were well into your ministry at Youth for Christ, that, again, 20 years ago. But recently, John, again, you were diagnosed with cancer now for the third time. How has that affected your faith, and how has that affected you?
If you didn't remind me and somebody didn't remind me, I wouldn't know that I was living with cancer. I am so at peace with where I am. I'm so at peace of God's care. I'm in a different situation too in life. I'm 72. I don't have dependent children, and I do have a desire to live. It's not that I care about not living, but the desperation factor isn't there, and my trust is different. I just completely trust in the Lord, and I'm at peace that He's caring for me and providing for me. And I get my blood work checked every 3 months and go to the oncologist and make my trip. And I come away with, yay, thank you. My blood work's perfect, and we're on a journey. But I'm at peace.
Yeah, it's amazing. As you get older, things change, and when you're kind of living for your kids and for your family, and you were involved in very successful ministry at the time. But I want to go back to Winnipeg, where you have lived for many years, and I lived there for 8 years, and you're a legend there, John. Well loved, well respected, rightfully so. Over the years, you served as the executive director for Youth for Christ over 40 years, helping young people see their potential, grow in their relationship with Jesus. Does that wanting, young people to see their potential, does that go back to, your days when you were kind of, put down that you were going to amount to much?
I really think it goes back to what I would call a spiritual calling, where I felt this crazy voice in my head and heart saying, you need to go to Bible school. And I thought, I was just so zealous to serve the Lord and to follow Jesus for what He had done for me in terms of transforming my life, that I wanted to say yes to whatever He wanted. And I thought, this is craziness. You don't go to college if you haven't finished high school, if you're a high school dropout. So I did apply with no expectation that I would get accepted. I got accepted on probation as a mature student. And it was during that process that I felt called to vocational full-time ministry. And that's where I discovered in my first year in Bible college that I wasn't really stupid. I got some very good marks because I really applied myself. And so that's where it really came together for me, that God put a call in my life to vocational full-time Christian ministry. Now, the youth part, absolutely. I knew it. I knew it was about youth, and I really knew it was about helping youth come to know the Jesus that transformed my life. And so that really has been the driving force of my life. And I've been one of those very privileged people, Greg, where you get to do life once, but if you had to do it twice, I'd say, oh, please, give me the same assignment. It's been just a perfect run for me. I've just so privileged to have been able to do what I've done and to serve God in following Him.
Yeah, and all the young people that you have touched over the years, and many of them are now well into their adulthood, and some even approaching retirement, because you, again, 47 years involved. You went on to get your master's degree, you got an honorary doctorate, you proved that vice principal wrong. John, people watching today, what are some of the lessons that you have taken out of your life, as you have gone through the cancer battle, as you've walked with Jesus for all these years? What would you say?
Well, I say prayer matters. Prayer makes a difference. I would say that God is pursuing us, even though we don't know it. So if our listeners are out there wondering, where is God? He's pursuing you. And no matter how messed up we find ourselves, Jesus can transform our lives and give us purpose. And when we surrender our hearts to him and choose to follow him. And then I would also say that, that God welcomes our prayers. When I went through my cancer journey, I knew that he had given me permission and an invitation to share my preferences, my desires, my hopes and my dreams, and even my fears and my doubts and my anger and my disappointments. And I was able to have those conversations with God. And he invites us to be honest in our relationship with him. And then, peace comes from trust and understanding. And then I would say, whatever God wants you to do, if he's, prompting you to do something, there's just no better place to be than where God wants you to be, doing what he wants you to do. And I would say the thing that has really given me the privilege of seeing everything happen that's happened in my life has been this incredible giftedness that has come from God himself, who has poured into my life an enablement, spiritual gifts, I think they're called, leadership and wisdom and faith and discernment, those spiritual gifts. God poured them into my life when he called me for the assignment that he gave me. So God equips us for what he's called us to do.